Good afternoon, Gail. How are you doing? Everything okay? So we're now in week 4, and this is the week 4 instructor session. And for this week, there are no discussion forums. All you have to do is just hand in your rough draft to the assignment portal. So this week is Halloween week, so happy Halloween. And for those of you who are trick-or-treating with your kids and have a great Halloween, as for me, I live in an apartment building, so like there's no candy or anything like that. So next week, starting November 1st, you will have your week 5 forum. And starting November 1st, when we do the week 5 forum, you can post your rough draft to the week 5 forum next week. Because some students are confused where to post their rough draft. Some have already posted to the week 5 forum and about 1 week early for that. So this week, all you have to do is post to the week 4 rough draft assignment, where I will give you teacher feedback on how you're doing with your rough draft. And then you can incorporate those corrections into your rough draft before you post to the week 5 forum. And then in the week 5 forum, you will get feedback from other students. And then for the week 6 final draft, you will incorporate all the feedback, teacher feedback and student feedback for your final draft. So that's why they call it the writing process. The writing process has 3 stages. You have the pre-writing, which is when we wrote our outline in week 2. Then you've got the writing, in which you convert the outline into a rough draft. And then you've got rewriting, in which we revise the paper in week 5 and 6, and you incorporate all of the feedback revisions into your paper. So writing, pre-writing, writing, rewriting. Those are the 3 stages of the writing process. And so this week we're undergoing the 2nd stage, which is writing, which is converting your outline into a rough draft. And so you're going to have 5 paragraphs, double spaced, and then indent 5 spaces, the first line of every paragraph. Make sure your thesis statement is the last sentence of the first paragraph. Now, I just recently did a PowerPoint on how you can do exciting essay hooks. A hook is the first sentence of the essay that grabs the reader's attention. And so I just posted my essay hooks video to the announcement. So if you want to figure out a way to excite your reader from the get-go and motivate your reader to read your essay, you can watch my video. You can use many different kinds of hooks, okay, so that you can hook your reader by asking an interesting question, an unusual quotation, you can tell a story or a cliffhanger, all of which you grab the reader. And if you ask an interesting question, such as, what does it take to be a successful nurse, right? Then the reader would have to read your essay in order to figure out how to be that successful nurse. Another mistake I noticed is to avoid using you and your in your paper. So you replace you and your with a person and a person's. That way you have a more professional tone, and avoid using slang, any kind of slang, because that's too conversational. And so I will go over all of that. I think I went over all of that when I seen one of my videos on what is a narrative essay. So I recently posted that also to the announcements. And some of you wrote your story first without writing a thesis statement. So if you're having trouble coming up with a thesis statement, you can write your whole story, your body paragraphs first, and then you summarize your entire body paragraph content into 1 sentence. That's the thesis statement. And then you can just summarize what you wrote in your body paragraph and write the thesis statement as the last sentence of the first paragraph. So remember, your introduction has 3 parts. It's got a bridge, it's got a hook, bridge, thesis. So the hook is the first sentence. The bridge is the 5 sentences that support your thesis statement. So that those are the sentences between the first sentence and the last sentence, the middle part of your introduction. Then you have your body paragraphs, and each body paragraph topic sentence, that is the first sentence, should match your thesis. So when you have a thesis statement with matching topic sentences, that is known as the 5-paragraph essay structure. So that's enough, and I will describe more of this after I go over the week 5 quiz. So in this video, I'm going to go over, as I start to share my screen, I'm going to go over the week 5 quiz. So here is the week 5 quiz. There we go. All right, and then we start to share it. So week 5 quiz prep. And so when we do the week 5 quiz prep, so you need to study this and listen to this lecture before you take your week 5 grammar quiz. Now you know the drill. A lot of people didn't know the drill in week 1. So we're going to go over punctuation, mainly quotation marks. So use of quotation marks in sentences. Quotation marks are used to quote dialogue and titles. You must use both beginning quotation mark and ending quotation mark around a title or dialogue. And so in your quiz, they're going to quiz you on like this. John says, Michael is here. If this is not correct because it only has a beginning quotation mark and it's missing a quotation mark over here. This one is wrong because it's missing a quotation mark over here. Correct. John says, Michael is here. So you need a beginning quotation mark over here. And you need a ending quotation mark over here in order for it to be the correct answer. Quiz question. Is this a correct or incorrect sentence? Is there a missing quotation mark? So which one is the correct sentence? A, Martha claims George is home. B or C? And so here we know it's C because A, it's missing the beginning quotation mark. B is missing the end quotation mark. And then C is correct because it's got the beginning and the ending quotation mark. John watched. So this is when someone is talking. So when someone is talking or in dialogue, you have to have that beginning and ending quotation mark. When you have a movie title, a book title, magazine title, you need to have a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark, just like with dialogue. So this one is incorrect because it's John watched The Beautiful Mind. And so this is incorrect because it's missing the end quotation mark. This one is incorrect because it's missing the beginning quotation mark. So John watched the movie The Beautiful Mind. This is correct because it's got a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark. So on the quiz, watch out for incomplete quotation marks. There are a lot of quiz questions like this. And so you must have quotation marks around both sides of your quotation. Why are these sentences wrong? These are actual sentences from your quiz. In Jason Bourne, Nikki Parson cryptically tells Jason, remembering everything doesn't mean you know everything. And so here you have your beginning quotation mark, but it's missing one over here. So that's why this sentence is incorrect. In Jason Bourne, Nikki Parson cryptically tells Jason, remembering everything doesn't mean you know everything. This one is actually missing a beginning quotation mark and it's missing an ending quotation mark. And so, and also Jason Bourne, name of the movie, the Bourne Identity. I think it's in Bourne Identity. Bourne Identity. All right, so this one is also, if I were to change this, in the movie Bourne Identity, Nikki Parson tells Jason this. And so here in the movie, this is the name of the movie, and this is missing a beginning quotation mark and an end quotation mark. And this is missing a beginning quotation mark and an end quotation mark. So remember that movie titles and dialogue both need a beginning and ending quotation mark. My dad's favorite saying is, don't pull tomorrow's cloud over today's sunshine. Where is the missing quotation mark? So the missing quotation mark is before don't, because you have to have a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark for this saying. And so you need quotation marks on both sides of your quotation after the word saying. Here's another quiz question. Find a truly original idea. It is the only way I will ever distinguish myself. It is the only way I will ever matter. John Nash moans in the movie A Beautiful Mind. And so here, John Nash, the character, is talking. And so when he's talking, you have to have a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark. And then for the movie title, the beginning quotation mark and the ending quotation mark. If both movie title and dialogue have both the beginning quotation mark and the ending quotation mark, then you know that sentence is correct. So for this quiz, you have to look closely at the sentences to make sure that all the quotation marks are in their place. John says, I am smart. And so here, this is correct because you have, see, this seems very obvious when I'm going over the grammar concepts, but then when you start doing the quiz and you start looking closely, you go, yeah, then it gets a little harder. So that's what most students have figured, that right now when I'm doing the talking, it's so easy. Then when they start doing it, then it gets harder. So anyway, so here you have a beginning quotation mark, ending quotation mark, because after the word says. Also, after the word says, you need a comma. So comma, I am smart. I saw a movie named Gone with the Wind. You've got both quotation marks. Here you're missing a quotation mark, so this is not correct. The demonstrators protesting nuclear arms carried signs reading, humans have never invented a weapon they haven't used. Where is there a missing comma? And so here, the demonstrators protesting nuclear arms, let's see, oh, they haven't used. So where is there a missing comma? And then I think I probably put it, I think the missing comma was over here. Okay, you always need both quotation marks around what somebody is saying. And so here's another one. The Emily Blunt character in, and then you need one quotation mark here, The Devil Wears Prada, and another one here, explains. And then as Emily Blunt's character explains, you need a comma after explains. I'm just one stomach flew away from my goal weight. And so here you have a quotation mark over here and a quotation mark over here. What is wrong with these sentences? And so Gail, are you there? You want to unmute yourself? So what is wrong with this sentence?
I think I'm the only one here.
You are the only one. Yeah. So you get one-on-one Zoom attention, right?
I'm actually sitting in the driveway at my dad's house on my phone, so I'm kind of having to make this work.
So what's wrong with
what is
what is wrong with this
one? The first.
Yeah, what's wrong with this sentence? Where are the missing quotation marks?
Okay, so there should be quotation marks around The Devil Wears Prada because it's a movie title.
Yeah, that's it. That's all that's missing in this. Yeah, that's correct. So The Devil Wears Prada is a title that needs quotation marks. And so the movie title, The Devil Wears, did you see the movie? It was pretty good. This was like, was it the 90s?
I watched the movie. The book was better.
Oh, really? Okay, now you make me want to go read the book. The book was way better?
The book was better, yeah. The whole thing about her washing her dishes, like she couldn't bear herself to do it, so she would just scrape her breakfast off and then put the dirty plate back in the cabinet.
Oh, shoot. Well, you didn't get that in the movie, but I read the book, The Firm, and here the book, The Firm, is way better than the movie. So actually, this is a pretty old book. This is before all the gadgets, before all cell phones and stuff, but it's still a good, I didn't realize how much lawyers overbill their clients and stuff like that. So that was all about corruption in a law firm. So that was a good book.
The Firm was John Grisham, right?
Yeah. It's before cell phones. So when you watch the movie, you're like, where are all the cell phones? Where's I think they had computers, but I didn't have any cell phones. I remember I was showing The Firm to a class I forget when it was, a couple of years ago, because I was teaching face-to-face. So I'm showing this movie, and one of the younger students said, how come they're not using cell phones at that law office or something like that? And I said, it's because this movie was made before cell phones. She was so shocked. She was shocked that there ever was a time where there were no cell phones. I was teaching freshmen just a couple of years ago. So that's pretty recent. But anyway, so you need a quotation mark before the verb and after the verb. So that's pretty easy. Ready to go on to more?
Yeah.
Okay. Singular versus plural subject. So plural subject means that you have one coat, more than one coat. And a couple of students were doing this. Coats are used in the winter. Why is this not correct?
Because that is coat is.
Coat is,
That's
yes.
winter.
So basically, we want coat. So we don't use apostrophe S in plural subjects. So here you have a singular subject. The coat is old. And then your quiz will say, is this a singular or plural subject? Books. This is a singular or plural subject. And then A will be singular, B will be plural. So you pretty much know this is plural. So were you in second grade when you learned all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do have
remember.
a question though. There's something that like I catch myself doing and I'm trying to stop because I'm pretty sure it's wrong, but using apostrophe S for possession.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you do use apostrophe S for possession, like Gail's coat or Robert's hat, that sort of thing. Or yeah. So you do use apostrophe S for both to show possession and also to show there was something else I was going to say, and for contractions. Okay, for it's, he's, that sort of thing. So yes, apostrophe S is for contractions and for possession. And so
I wasn't doing it wrong.
It was, yeah, you weren't doing it wrong. Yeah, you were doing it right. It was I think someone else. I did a video on someone's rough draft the other day, and she was confusing S with apostrophe S. I think that was, so sometimes if someone is the first one to hand in their essay, they get to have a video made of their rough draft, which is what happened to the two students, one student in each class, and each one was the first one to hand in their video. So they get to have their essay broadcast to everybody, mistakes and everything, without their name, of course. Anyway, so I think that makes it easier for corrections, So that's the difference between a singular subject and a plural subject. Capitalization in sentences. So we capitalize proper nouns. Remember that there are three kinds of nouns. You have a common noun, which is a person, place, or thing. You have proper noun, which is names and titles of people or things. And then you have, there was a third one off the top of my head, proper noun, plural nouns. And so proper, plural, and common, proper, and plural nouns are the three kinds of nouns. And so what you have to capitalize proper nouns, because proper nouns are names. The French people live in France. And so here, French is a proper name, is a proper noun. It needs to be capitalized. France is a proper noun, needs to be capitalized. Uncle Bob lives in Kansas. So if uncle has a name after it, you need to capitalize Uncle Bob. If I just simply say my uncle lives in Kansas, okay, you could still say correct. My uncle lives in Kansas, because we're not saying which uncle. So as long as we're not saying which uncle we're talking about, then you don't have to capitalize it. As soon as you name someone Uncle Bob, then you have to capitalize it. President Lincoln. Well, obviously you have to capitalize President Lincoln. And so here, I like to drive. I just fixed this on somebody's essay just today, is you have to capitalize I like to drive. And so here are some examples from your quiz. A slightly more peaceful France, or it was restored when Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power in 1799. Is this sentence correct or incorrect?
A slightly more peaceful France was. I think it's correct.
It is correct, yes, because the proper noun here is capitalized, and here the proper noun Napoleon Bonaparte. So when you have names of people, titles, like King George or Uncle Bob, or names of places, those are all examples of proper nouns that all need to be capitalized. What is wrong with these sentences? I love my Uncle Bob because they always makes me laugh. I think I might have fixed it. It's not in this case, it doesn't seem to be a proper noun error. It's a different kind of error altogether.
No, it's a pluralization error. It should be because he always makes me laugh.
Yes,
They
because
is Bob is your.
yes, because he always makes me laugh. Yeah, so I included a sentence that didn't have supposed to be capitalization errors, but oh well. So I think that I might have corrected this. I think originally on the quiz, it looks like this. Okay, I love my Uncle Bob because he always makes me laugh. I believe that's how it looks on your quiz. And then they're going to ask what's wrong with this sentence. And then I think you're supposed to fix it to this. And I forgot to put it back the way I found it for the next batch of students or student like you. And this one, when I miss the bus, I call for a taxi instead. You still have to capitalize even when it's about yourself. You always capitalize names of countries and names of famous people. In your opinion, which sentence shows proper capitalization? Let's see. Yeah, so here we go. However, he quickly declared himself Emperor Napoleon I, and in 1812 led a French invasion of Russia. What is wrong with this sentence?
Emperor should be capitalized because that would be part of his title.
That's correct. So this one should be Emperor. I put it back the way I found it. So yeah, Emperor Napoleon I is incorrect. So that needs to be. And what is wrong with this sentence? Oh, okay. I tell you there.
French should be
French capitalized. And this one, President Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. So here I wrote the answer, capitalized titles like President of the United States. And here we already had this president. So, all of these have some capitalization error, and you always have to capitalize titles and names. Those are proper nouns. So everything okay now? Yeah?
Yeah.
Comma usage and the dependent clause. And so a dependent clause is like a sentence fragment. It's not a complete sentence. So when you start a sentence with a subordinating conjunction, while, when, as, before, after, if, then you turn that sentence into a fragment, into a dependent clause. So if I were to write something like, for instance, let's say I have, I chew gum. Here you have a simple sentence. Let's see, if I were to write, I walk the dog. Here you have a complete simple sentence. But if I were to add the subordinating conjunction, while I walk the dog, or when, that's weird, when I walk the dog, then this simple sentence gets transformed into a dependent clause. So when you see something like this that's incomplete with no no independent clause afterwards, that is a sentence fragment. If I were to say, while I walk the dog, I chew gum, then it becomes a complete sentence. This becomes known as a complex sentence. And so a complex sentence is when you have a dependent clause, while I walk the dog, and an independent clause, I chew gum, together as one sentence. We're going to go over this kind of sentence structure in more detail in your week 7 quiz. But in this particular quiz, you just have to know that when you have a dependent clause at the beginning of a sentence, you need a comma. But if I were to say, I chew gum while I walk the dog, if that same dependent clause comes after the independent clause, in other words, if the dependent clause is at the end of the sentence, you don't need a comma. But if the dependent clause is at the beginning of the sentence, you need a comma. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, and another time that you need a comma is when you have fanboys. Fanboys stands for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So whenever you have a sentence with fanboys, which is a compound sentence, you have something like, I chew gum and I walk my dog. What is wrong with this sentence? I just said the gum.
It needs a comma after gum because it's technically it can be two sentences.
Very good. Yes, I chew gum, comma, and I walk my dog. So anytime you have a compound sentence and you have and, nor, but, and any of these coordinating conjunctions, when any of these coordinating conjunctions combine in between two sentences, you have to have a comma. And once again, this will be gone over in much more detail next time. So if I say, he studied hard, comma, yet he failed the test. Okay, so here you have a comma because this goes under yet. She ate less per meal so she could lose weight. So these are all examples of coordinating conjunctions that combine two independent clauses together, and then you need a comma over here. So this will become, I'm going to go over this again when we do sentence structure. So you still have to know the comma usage for this test. So this is here, you have the comma for the complex sentences. So you have to use commas for and, but, or, no, for, so, yet. You have to use a comma when a dependent clause comes at the beginning of a sentence. And as a nurse, I have a job with benefits. So that needs a comma. I see that a lot. While growing up, you always use a comma when an introductory clause is at the end, at the beginning of a sentence. While I was growing up, or while growing up. And also if you use something like growing up, I always wanted to be a nurse. So that's the same thing as while I was growing up, I always wanted to be a nurse. So when you see this sort of here, when you have, you don't put in the I was and you just say while growing up, that's known as a reduced adjective clause. So that means that, and then this is even shorter. So this all means while I was growing up, and all of them require a comma. So always use a comma when you have an introductory clause at the beginning of a sentence. So here I go over the same thing. John eats very little, although he is fat. Here, although he is fat is at the end of the sentence, so you don't need a comma. Here you have although John is fat as at the beginning of the sentence, so you need a comma. And so how do you know that this is a dependent clause? That's because the word although is a subordinating conjunction. So I always tell students that they need to have 3 different kinds of lists next to them. You need to have a transition word list, so you don't always repeat but, and all the time. And you need a subordinating conjunction list, so you know not to have sentence fragments. Because as soon as you know that there's a subordinating conjunction followed by a sentence, then you know you need another sentence to complete the thought. So you always have to have your subordinating conjunction list and your transition word list for different reasons in front of you while you're writing your paper. If you don't know it in your head. Most people know it in their head, but if you don't, and also when the relative clause, okay, let's see that. What is a relative clause? So a relative clause, okay, also requires commas. So what is a relative clause? A relative or adjective clause is the same thing. Okay, relative or adjective clause is who, whose, which, that, when, and where. And so these are all adjective clauses used to combine 2 sentences with the same subject or two sentences with the same object. So if you have too many simple sentences in your essay and you want to combine your sentences so you don't sound so choppy. So here's an example. Jane is French. Jane lives in Paris. And so here you have Jane and Jane. And so instead of saying Jane and Jane, you would say Jane, who is French, notice the two commas, lives in Paris. So when we have a relative clause, that means that when you have something like a same subject, we use who. And then if you have the table is old, the table is dirty. Okay, and so here you could say the old dirty table, or you can say the old table which is dirty. All of these, so here you're able to combine the old table which is dirty, and then you can now add another thought, because right now this is still a sentence fragment. So here I was able to combine these two sentences together into an adjective clause, which the old table which is dirty is an antique. So here I combine three different sentences. The table is old, the table is dirty, the table is an antique. So when you have a whole bunch of sentences with the same same subject, then you can combine it together with a relative clause. So, and then when you have it this here, and did you notice that I didn't put a comma over here? Okay, here you have to have a comma here, which the table which is dirty is an antique. So when the relative clause comes in the middle of the sentence, you need two commas, not just one comma, but two commas. If the dependent clause or the adjective clause comes at the end of the sentence, then it does not need a two commas. Here is an example from your quiz. Large cactus plants, which now sell for very high prices, are being stolen from national parks and protected areas. And so here, the which combines two sentences. Here you have large cactus plants sell for high prices. Large cactus plants are being stolen from parks. So here you have two of the same subjects. So whenever you have two of the same subjects, you can combine the two sentences together using which. You don't have to do that for your quiz, but you just have to know why we use which. And then you can combine the two sentences. Instead of saying large cactus plants sell for high prices, they're being stolen, you can say large cactus plants, then you need one comma here, which now sell for very high prices, you need a second comma. So when the adjective clause is in the middle of a sentence, you need a comma before the subordinating conjunction, and you need a comma after the last word of the dependent clause. So the quiz is going to ask you where to put the commas. Do we put the commas after plants, and then that's it? Or do we put the comma after plants and prices? In other words, they're asking you, do we need one comma when we use which, or do we need two commas when we use which? And when we use which, we need two commas. So that goes for all of the adjective clauses. Who, whose, which, that, when, where, all of those, when they come in the middle of a sentence, all need two commas. When they come at the end of the sentence, one comma. Okay, the old table is French, which is antique. Although I can't think of which is made of wood or something like that. The table which is made of wood is old. So comma here and a comma here. And another word for adjective clause is also known as an appositive. You can look that up as well. So there are many different ways of calling this: appositive, adjective clause, relative clause. It's an adjective clause because which is made of wood is modifying the noun table. And adjectives always modify the noun, Okay, so when you say that table which is made of wood, that's like this, that's like saying the same thing as the wooden table. So that's why we call it an adjective clause. So here you just have to remember the rule is that when which, who, whose are in the middle of a sentence, they need 2 commas. Jane is French, Jane who is French. Here's another one. So you replace the same subject. This I'm going over the same thing. So here, when Karen's mother returned to college this year, the entire family had to help out with the housework. And so I believe the original sentence in your quiz looks like this. Okay, in the quiz, the comma is actually not there. And so the quiz is gonna ask you, when Karen's mother returned to college this year, the entire family had to help out with the housework. Where is the missing comma? And so you have to figure out where the dependent clause ends and where the independent clause begins, because that's where you put the comma. And so here we figure out when Karen's mother returned to college this year, this whole thing is one dependent clause. And so wherever that dependent clause ends, we put the comma. So the answer to that is after year. That's where we put, where is the missing comma? We place it after year. And so whenever a dependent clause is at the beginning of a sentence, we have to use a comma. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is how it's going to look in your quiz, minus the comma. So adjective clauses, so after a dependent clause, you always need a comma. These are all complex sentences. A complex sentence has a dependent clause and an independent clause, and you have to, I just said all of this. Face masks, which sell at high prices. Here you need one comma and 2 commas. When which is in the middle of a sentence. Here the table, which is made of wood. Here you have comma 1 and comma 2. But if the dependent clause, if you're using who and which and where, then you need a comma. Remember when I said that, however, John studied hard, although he failed the test. Remember I just said, but if we're not using an adjective clause and we're just using a regular subordinating conjunction, then when the dependent clause is at the end of the sentence, you don't need a comma. It's only when you have an adjective clause, like that is made of wood, then when you have a dependent clause at the end of a sentence, you need a comma. That's why you need to know what is an adjective clause, because they come with their own set of rules. Normally, when you have a dependent clause at the end of a sentence, you don't have a comma. But because adjective clauses, who, which, that, have their own set of rules, then for an adjective clause, you have to have 1 comma. Okay, and that's about it. I love food when it is greasy. I love food that is greasy. And also it depends on whether or not, there's also another set of rules, is that if if it is not important, then you can put a comma. If it is important, that's a whole nother called restrictive. And I know you're like, what? Okay, so right now, all you have to remember is when you have a relative clause that is not necessary to the sentence, then use commas between the relative clause. So large cactus plants, which now sell for very high prices. In other words, this is not very important. And because this is not very important to the sentence, you put commas next to it. If this is important, but for the quiz, you don't need to know that difference. All you have to know is that when which comes in the middle of a sentence, you have to have a comma here and a comma here. And so when I talk about restrictive and non-restrictive clauses, okay, so this has got to do with your writing style. So if you are a very selective writer, okay, then you could have, then you can decide when you want to use your commas. So I would say the man who wears the hat is from Texas. And so here, the man who wears the hat is from Texas. the man is from Texas. Is it really necessary for us to know that he's wearing a hat? Is that really that important in the grand scheme of things for this sentence?
No.
No. So when it's not important, then we put in a comma here and we put in a comma here. So as a writer, you have the choice, because when you put the commas in here, you're telling the reader that's not important. Okay, that's not really an important detail for you to understand. If you take away the commas, you can do it that way. You could go like this. All right, the man who wears a hat is from Texas. That means you're telling the reader it's really an important detail that he's wearing a hat, because later on in the story, some rabbit is going to come out of that hat. So I want you to notice, I want you, the reader, to notice he's wearing that hat. Okay, so it's like emphasis. So that's known as restrictive or non-restrictive clauses. You can look that up to find out even more, but that's got to do with writing style. Okay, but for the most part, people put, that's why if it's important or not important, that's the reason why we put in those commas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do have a question though.
Yeah.
What is the difference between this kind of sentence and a split infinitive?
Oh, a split infinitive would be like, I want to study. I want to, I don't know, hardly study. Okay, that doesn't make sense, but I can't think of a good example. Anyway, a split infinitive is when you split the infinitive with an adverb, okay? And you're not supposed to split the infinitive. You're just supposed to say, I want to study. An infinitive is any kind of verb, like to go, to see, to study, to, I don't know, go to a class, to discover, all right? And so when you have an infinitive, you don't want to split that up with an adverb, okay? You want to put the adverb, you could say, he hardly studies, or I hardly study, or something like that, but you can't say, I too hardly study. And for everybody else who's preparing for the quiz, watching this video, split infinitives are not on this. That's just Gail's question. So we don't confuse.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forget that this is being recorded.
Yeah, this is being recorded, so people are going to go, I need to know split infinitives for my quiz. And I'm like, no, you don't. But it's good to know. It's still good to know. We don't split up infinitives. Yes. Anyway, so here you have to know more for the quiz. Comma usage. This I think I already went over. That means you got to put commas when you have John is smart, but Mary is stupid. Here you have to have a for, yet, so. All of this all needs a comma when you have fanboys. And so you need a comma for that. Use a comma after a coordinating conjunction. And also when you have a transition word, John is fat, you can eat. So here when you have a transition word between two sentences, you can either have, let me put this down farther so you can see it. Okay, you could either say John is fat, period. However, he eats very little. So then you could have a period and a comma. Or if you want to combine the two sentences together, you can write John is fat, semicolon, however, he eats very little. So either way, you can do when you have a transition word. So the next thing is apostrophes. So when we use an apostrophe or apostrophe s, we use the apostrophe for contractions like I'm, he's, she's, they're, we're, you're, it's. And so here, he's means he is, she's is she is, there is they are, we're is we are, your is you are, it's is it is, and you can't say it's. So when you have a contraction, you say it's a nice day, so that's a contraction. And then the dog wagged its tail. Okay, that's a possessive pronoun. So when we have a possessive pronoun, we do not use an apostrophe s. So his, hers, yours, theirs, its. Here you have your and you are and your. So you have a lot of people who confuse. You're crazy to go into the seawater in the wintertime. And that it's incorrect to say you're crazy to go into the seawater in the wintertime. you have to say your wallet is filled with money. So your is a possessive pronoun that shows to whom the wallet belongs to. I am sure you're going to think I'm crazy. So the correct answer is you are. Okay, and so he's and he'll. So he'll, if he understands the circumstances, he's to make the right choice, or he'll make the right choice. So this is on your quiz. If he understands the circumstances, he'll make the correct. So the correct answer to this is he'll make the correct choice, because he, the apostrophe LL, stands for he will. Is that everything good?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when to spell out numbers. So when you have numbers that are large, like 1,202, then you write out the number. In other words, you write the actual digit, 1202. If you have fewer than two words, then you just write out just write the number. You write out the number 57. So anything under, let's see, spell out numbers that are fewer than 3 words. And so 57 is only 2 words. When I say spell out the number, that means you write the actual words, 57. You don't write the number. If you have it's larger than 3 words, 1,202, I was like, I think 1,000. That's about 4 words or so. Then you just write the digit as like this, okay? And then if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you always spell it out. So you would write out 1, 10, 2, and stuff like that. So here, for example, I made a mistake. I'm supposed to write 3, okay? So spell out numbers under 10. So spell out means you have to write it out. And so whenever I write 5-paragraph essay structure in your feedback, I'm supposed to be doing 5 paragraphs. So I make that mistake all the time. So here in your quiz, they're going to ask you, we will have the report for you in 72 hours. Well, that's not correct, because 72 it's 2 words. You only write it out if it's just 2 words, then you spell it out, 72. So 72 can be written 72, which is fewer than 3 words. So it needs to be spelled out. However, use numbers to show dates, times, addresses, percentages, and chapters of books. So you could say chapter 2 or October 31st, 2021, or 1000 Bateman Street, or 45%. All right. So use numbers to show addresses, percentages, and chapters of books. So here I give some examples, and I will put it like this. So each time I give a lecture, I improve the lecture notes slightly. Okay, select which sentence contains correct use of, which sentence contains the correct use of numbers. We'll have a report for you in 72 hours. She has $1,345. Actually, all of these are correct, because here you have 72, it's just 2 words. So 72 can be spelled out. This one is more than 2 words, so you write the number. So you always write out numbers if more than 3 words. Okay, less than 3 words, you spell out the number. More than 3 words. So let's see. So more than 3 words, more than 3 words, write the number. Yeah, like 1,347, and then less than 3 words, spell it out like 72. So is that clear about what you do with numbers? Yeah? Okay. Abbreviation. So here, only standard abbreviations are used, and I think this is the last topic, okay? Because after that is your practice quiz. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so this is the last topic. So only standard abbreviations are used in academic writing, USA. If it is not standard, then spell it out for clarity. So usually you cannot assume that your reader knows what your alphabet soup means. If I simply said I belong to TESOL. Do you know what TESOL means? So that means the first time you mention the abbreviations in a paper, you need to spell it out. Then the rest of the paper, you can write TESOL, 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 TESOL. And so here, so in that way, your readers know what the abbreviations stand for. So when you write a paper, write out the abbreviation for the first time. Then you can use it. So only standard abbreviations should be used in academic writing. If it is not standard, then spell out the word or phrase for clarity. So is this true or false? Obviously it's true because you have to spell it out. You can't assume everyone's going to know what TESOL is. So that's actually a quiz question. So always write out the abbreviations. Never assume the reader knows what your abbreviation means. USC is great. So USC, if you're in Los Angeles, everybody knows that USC stands for University of California, University of Southern California. But if you're from the South, it can also mean University of Southern Carolina. And so because USC there's two different universities that have USC, it's better to spell out which USC you're talking about, okay? So I will text you the directs to my house later today. This is incorrect. We do not use text messaging spelling in our papers. It is not correct English. So do these sentences have correct abbreviations? The FBI distributed a most wanted list. My psychology course is taught by Dr. Kathleen, PhD. Are these correct? Yes or no? The last two sentences.
Yes.
Yes. So the last two, because FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and PhD means philosophy of doctorate, dissertation. All right. So you got everything ready for the quiz? Quiz 5 practice test? Okay.
Yay!
Yeah. Large cat. Here, why don't you read it and tell me where it is?
Okay. Large cactus plants, which now sell for very high prices, are being stolen from national parks and protected desert areas. So the combos will be after plants and after prices.
Excellent. And then what about this one? You can read this one too for the studio audience, because some people only listen to the audio.
Which sentence contains incorrect abbreviations? C.
I will text you the directs to my house, okay? Go ahead. Here you got the quotation mark. You got to look carefully. Which one?
Right.
Pick the sentence that puts the quotation marks in the proper place. And the sentence reads, find a truly original idea. It is the only way I will ever distinguish myself. It is the only way I will ever matter. John Nash moans in A Beautiful Mind. So which one has all its quotation marks?
It looks like B.
Excellent. Yes. So here in B, you have the beginning quotation mark here for the dialogue, the end quotation mark here for the dialogue. And then for the movie title, you have the beginning quotation mark here and the end quotation mark here. Now, don't think that in your quiz, it's going to be B, because the quiz machine, the computer will split it all up. And that way people can't cheat. So if for some people, the right answer is going to be A, for other people, it's going to be right answer is going to be C, but it's always going to look like this, okay? Because it's going to switch. It's one of those computer programs. So yes, so if you have the quote, so long as you have the quotation marks, both quotation marks for both the dialogue and the movie title, then you have the correct answer. Okay, what about number 4? I am sure going to think I'm crazy. Is it A or B? There is no C in this case.
A.
Yeah, you are going to think I'm crazy. And which one shows proper capitalization? A, B, or C? Uncle Bob when I miss my bus, or Grandma Janet?
C, Grandma Janet.
Excellent. If I simply said grandma without the Janet, then we don't need to abbreviate it. Okay, true or false? Only standard abbreviations should be used in academic writing. If it is not standard, then spell out the word for clarity.
True.
True. You can read this. Go ahead.
My dad's favorite saying is, "Don't pull tomorrow's cloud over today's sunshine." Where's the missing quotation? So the missing quotation is before don't.
Excellent. So the answer is A. I can't seem to find choose the correct sentence. I can't seem to find the keys. This is the first time you weren't late. If you aren't going to make it, please call. Which one is the correct sentence?
C.
C, because both of these are missing apostrophes, and these two are not supposed to be together. Choose the sentence that puts the quotation marks in the proper place. A, B, or C. In Jason Bourne, Nikki Parsons tells Jason, remembering everything doesn't mean you know everything.
C.
C, yes, because C has the beginning and ending quotation mark, which shows proper capitalization. Oh,
It looks like both A and B are the same.
I thought so at first until I noticed this. A, capital A.
Oh.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at first either until I had to look closely. Yeah, because that's how they try to fool you. So which one is correct? A, yes, because here you have the first word or article, whatever, has to be capitalized. Then you have to capitalize France because it's a proper noun. And you got to capitalize names and titles, which is all proper nouns. So and these are wrong because someone forgot to capitalize this. And I think this one is wrong because this wasn't capitalized. And I'm surprised that whatchamacallit, the Microsoft Word Grammar Check didn't capture this. See how it's underlined here? Captures all the other mistakes. Anyway, which one contains the correct use of numbers, A or B?
B.
B, because if it's under 3 words, we spell it out. Select the sentence that puts the quotation marks in the proper place. Now you're going to make me buy the Devil Wears Prada book. I didn't realize the book was better. I didn't read the book. I only saw the movie. So
you should definitely read the book. It's a little different from the movie.
Oh, I'll definitely read the book now. I get the book now. Okay, so which one is correct? A, B, or C?
A.
A, yes, because here you have a beginning quotation mark for the movie title, ending quotation mark, and then for the dialogue, beginning quotation mark and ending quotation mark. Which sentence shows proper capitalization? A, B, or C?
C.
C, yes. So President Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. So here you have to capitalize President Abraham Lincoln, which is a name, and title, 16th president of the United States. When Karen's mother returned to college this year, the entire family had to help out with the housework. Where is there a missing comma?
The missing comma is after year, A.
Yes, that's correct. So that's where the missing comma, because here you have the dependent clause, and when the dependent clause is at the beginning of a sentence, we have to use a comma. And so here, I had left my wallet on the store counter, but the clerk called me at home to say that it was safe. Where do we put the comma?
It would be after counter. So B, wherever I went.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
B.
here it would be after counter. Yeah. So the correct answer is B, because when you have fanboys and fanboys, and it is between two sentences, when but is between two sentences, you need to put a comma before but, because it is a compound sentence. If he understands the circumstances, he'll, or he make the correct choice. Is it A, B, or C?
B.
B. He'll make the
B.
correct choice. He will. So this becomes he will. And so here, do you need more? That's it for the actual. That's your actual week 5 quiz. Do you feel like you need to go over this again?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. Do you think you need more practice? This is more week 5 quiz practice.
No, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward.
Okay, so we will not do that. These are all the answers in case you want to go over it yourself. And for those of you who want to go over the week, the more practice quiz, these are also the correct answers. So I've already gone over what is peer review. Did you watch the peer review video that I put on the homepage?
Yeah.
So you tell me, what is peer review? What are you supposed to do when you do peer review?
So peer review is where other people can look at what you've written and then give you critiques for your final draft or your final essay.
Right. Are you supposed to get offended or insulted when people give you feedback?
Well, no, you shouldn't. They're just trying to help.
Yeah, I've had some students. Are you going to feel embarrassed to give people feedback by thinking, I'm not a good writer, or I'm not good at grammar? Will that hold you back from giving grammar feedback?
No, you should help anyway.
Yeah, you just write out whatever you do know. And if you don't know anything, you simply say, you've got a great paper. I think you did your thesis looks really good to me, and you placed it in the correct spot. I think it's supposed to be the last sentence of the first paragraph. You can sound doubtful. You don't have to sound like a teacher because you're not a teacher. So you could just show appreciation. You have great sentence structure because you put all the punctuation in, and you give an example. So you could have 3 kinds of feedback. You either you have appreciation feedback, where you compliment the person on what they did well. You can have a mentoring feedback, where let's say if you post your rough draft, you can also ask questions. In other words, after you post your rough draft for your initial post, you can actually ask people, I wasn't sure about my thesis. What do you think? Or I'm not sure about my grammar. What do you think? And then that way, mentoring feedback is when people try to answer your questions. If you happen to have questions after you post your feedback, okay, after you post your rough draft. So that's mentoring feedback. And then coaching feedback is when you simply, off the top of your head, you read someone's rough draft, and then you go, oh, I think that you need a thesis statement, or you're missing a paragraph, or I agree with your topic. So you have 3 kinds of feedback. You have mentoring feedback, appreciation feedback, mentoring feedback, coaching feedback. The 4th kind of feedback is known as evaluation feedback, in which you grade the paper. And I'm the only one that grades the paper. Peer review does not involve you grading other people's papers. You're not there to say you got an A paper or you've got an F paper. And so there are 4 kinds of feedback that occurs in the entire class. And the only kind of feedback you're not doing is grading, which is evaluation feedback. You're just doing the first 3, which is appreciation, coaching, and mentoring. And then the 4th kind of feedback, evaluation feedback, that's and so the first 3 kinds, that's known as constructive criticism, which you give actionable suggestions to the students on how they can improve their paper. So you don't just say, oh, your paper sucks, or your paper's great, without saying why. In either direction, you should say why it's great or why it sucks. Okay, and plus we're not going to use the word sucks, but because that's too colloquial. And here I go over examples, for instance, this is an actual post, okay? So what is wrong with this post? What would you write to this student? That if someone posted something that looks like this, what would you say in their peer review?
I would suggest I see Miss G a lot. I would just suggest writing someone's name out as
Okay,
opposed to using something short and familiar like that.
okay, and
Your
what about
readers aren't necessarily going to know that person that way.
okay, what else? Is it very clear when all the sentences are bunched up like that with no paragraphs? Can you tell where one paragraph starts and the other one doesn't? Which is the main mistake in this particular case. She wrote, this is how long she wrote the entire, this is how it showed up. And it wasn't a formatting mistake either. This person did not understand paragraphs. So when we write a paragraph, each paragraph should have only 5 to 7 sentences. So for example, one could split it over here, should be a split roughly over here, wherever this one should be another split. In other words, she should indent 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's a paragraph. Each paragraph should have double spaced, should express one idea from your thesis statement. So this person was missing paragraph structure. And I remember having to teach this person how we separate into paragraphs, roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's what was wrong with this. Steve, you have no paragraph structure. You did not indent 5 spaces. Where is your thesis statement? What is your main idea? I have no idea what you're talking about. This would be an example of what you would write when you see something like that. Okay, and then in marriage, there are many beautiful things that make it much more special. In my opinion, there are many things that go into a successful marriage. And so here she has a really good thesis statement, because she says there are 3 things you need to have a successful marriage. You need to have good communication, good partnership, and genuine love. And then she shows that she has her topic sentence matches her thesis. So your thesis needs to be the last sentence of the first paragraph, and then each topic sentence, which is the first sentence, needs to match this last sentence thesis statement. So she did a good job with her thesis statement, because here you have matching topic sentences, right? And so her mistake is using a lot of you should be replaced with a person. So all yous should be replaced with a person, okay? Instead of you and your, a person's spouse, because that way it sounds more person shows up ready for whatever has for a person to take on. So you have to replace, she has to replace all her a person and a person in order for her essay to sound more professional. So that's, but she has, you could write so that someone could write, Jan, you have excellent essay structure because your thesis statement is the last sentence of the first paragraph and you have matching topic sentences, but you need to replace your you and your with a person and a person. So that would be an example of what you would write. And then you could write, I agree. Marriage does take a lot of work, especially if you're married. So you can comment on the topic too, okay? So here I wrote down what you could write and that sort of thing. You have great thesis statement. I love how your body paragraphs goes back to the main idea. And I agree with you that marriage is hard work. Anyway, so you get the idea. And so how many in-text citations should my essay have? And so I don't remember whose I just did today, but you should only have 1 in-text citation per paragraph. Now for this essay, you don't really need to have in-text citations yet, but for essay 2, you are going to be required to have one APA in-text citation. And so how do I know how many in-text citations I should put into my essay? And so here in your body paragraph structure, you have P is the main point from the thesis statement. So that's the topic sentence. Then you're just going to write your one in-text citation. 80% of Americans are fat. Then you write 5 sentences describing why that in-text citation is important. So you would say the majority of Americans seem to overeat. They have eating problems. People need to go on a diet. People need to, so you write 5 sentences that revolve around 80% of Americans are obese. So in that way, in one body paragraph, you only use one in-text citation. Why do we do it this way? Because if we use too many statistics in one paragraph, you just overwhelm the reader. He or she not going to remember all those numbers anyway. The human brain can only take on one idea at a time. In other words, retain it. So that makes your essay more memorable, more interesting, is if you use fewer numbers. So use pie structure if you're going to use in-text citations. What is an in-text citation? An in-text citation is anytime I use any kind of number, okay, any kind of numbers, statistics, figures, dates, okay, that is known as an in-text citation. Where did you get this number from? Did you do that research? No. So then you have to put in the author's name, and then you have to put in the date, and then you have to put in the page number if it's a direct quote. If it's a paraphrase quote, then you just put in Smith 2021. Either way, you have to put in the in-text citation, that is the author, the date, and the page number when you cite your source. And then this is known as an in-text citation. Reference citation is when you put out the whole thing, article. So that's, and here's an example of a pie structure. So here you have the thesis statement: smoking causes lung cancer, throat cancer, and stomach cancer. And so here you have P is the main point from the thesis: smoking causes lung cancer here. Then you have your one in-text citation: 70% of smokers die of lung cancer before the age of 60. So here you have the author's name, Smith, 2009, page 22. Then you write your 5 sentences about this one statistic. That's known as pie structure. So you can use that for one of your body paragraphs if you're going to use an in-text citation. And so here you have, and I'm going to give a short APA lecture because people are starting to make APA mistakes. When you do use it, APA stands for American Psychological Association. And you're going to be using APA a lot in your papers at Fortis College. And so a direct quote is when you quote something word per word. And so here you need to have a Smith 2009, page 22. Or you can say Smith states, and then people are fat, and then you have, so there are 3 ways to write your direct quote. A paraphrase quote, and when you have a direct quote, you need to have beginning quotation mark, ending quotation mark, date, and page number. A paraphrase quote is when you summarize the author's point of view, and then you don't need quotes and you don't need the page numbers. And instead of saying says all the time, you could use signal phrase verbs. And so he says, comments, topic, discusses, expresses. So you could have, instead of saying states all the time. And you can download your own list of signal phrase verbs. A reference citation is something you put at the end of your paper, and then you list it in alphabetical order. Left hanging indent means that the top 1, 2, 4, 5 gets indented and everything else stays at, oh, it's the other way around. Okay, oops. This is a left hanging indent where here you have, it's over here and here it's indented. It's the opposite of what you do for your paragraphs. It's a left hanging indent. And this is how you do a left hanging indent. And then when we do writing process, we have 3 stages. We have pre-writing, writing, rewriting. And in this gives you I want to travel the world. This gives you an example of the 5-paragraph essay structure, okay? And this is the writing. Okay, this would be pre-writing, in which I write the outline. Then writing, which is the second stage, is when I convert the outline into a paragraph format. And then rewriting would be in week 6, is week 5 and 6, when we do our peer review next week. Okay, next week is going to start rewriting. This week we're in stage 2, writing. Next week we're going to do stage 3 of the writing process, in which we're going to rewrite our essay based on the feedback we get from me and from other students. So that's known as rewriting. Okay, and that is the end of this week 5 prep lecture. And so I will stop sharing here. And so do you have any questions for this week 4 instructor session? If you have no questions, then I can sign off and say happy Halloween. Hope you like my fun background for this time. And do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you're ready to do your week 4 rough draft and get 100% on everything?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you 100%, and I hope to see you next week. Okay. Okay, so I'll see you next Wednesday. Okay, bye.